we rely on our messages, and we rely on the creativity of getting a response back. And I think that's what the real context of this training is we just want to get a connection. And so we could tell you what to say on a voice message. I could tell you how to script a text, but the overall end result is to get them to connect back with you and open the dialogue, right? So if we focus solely on just getting the connection without knowing what to say once you get that connection, I think you are halfway to your battle of actually making a sale. And this is the whole point of leaving a voicemail, is to make a sale. So as I reverse engineer, if you'd like to know what to say when you do connect, catch the full training you probably missed yesterday morning, I'll just email me and I'll send you the link. It tells you what to say when you actually make that connection. But with regards to voice messages, we called back people that already technically said no and declined New American Funding. These are also people that already was shown a cheaper price from a competitor and have made the decision to start the process with that competitor. And so you had a different technique or wordplay when you used voice messages because your end goal was to somehow make them connect with you. So in all reality, because we are looking for attention, we know that most consumers, all their attention is here. Everywhere you look, everyone is looking at their phone. The problem is, though, is that there's just so many different distractions. There's alerts, there's emails, there's something that is usually taking away their attention to make them quickly process through all the alerts and say trash worthy, trash worthy. Does that make sense? This is what we do. We do it through our emails, we do it through our voice messages, we do it through everything that we siphon through because we're just busy people. And the reason why I bring this up is because it's the same thing with our prospects. They are just like us. And if we realize how we react to certain messages, we'll know how to approach them better. And so when you think about anytime you get an email or voice message from anyone that you don't recognize on your phone, you usually forward it the voice message. Now there's technology that actually transcribes the message. The problem is, though, is that message started off with, hey, this is Daniel with New American Funding. It's a great day. Call me back, 949, blah, blah, blah. Just wanted to see if you're still in the market. Just wanted to see if you still want to refinance. This is what they're reading or they're listening to. And so this is not necessarily applicable to them. This is one of the trash. It's not worthy. Does that make sense? So they're siphoning through it. And so the message, if you're leaving voice message right now, giving too much information, I think what Ray was talking about is that you become kind of like an advertisement. And so they take your information and they don't necessarily need to connect with you anymore. The problem is, though, is that you need to connect with them to properly sell them. The whole point of leaving a message is so you could sell them. There's no way to sell someone through just strictly email, voice message, or text. You need to connect with them. And so there are two different messages that are left on a daily basis. There are messages that are left with follow-up calls for locks that didn't buy or we didn't secure commitment. And usually those follow-up messages sound something like, hey, this is Daniel with New American Funding. I just wanted to see if you put any thought to those numbers we talked about. I just wanted to see if you talked to your spouse about our conversation. Something to that effect, and we never hear back from them. Well, the problem is because the wordplay we use. And so this wordplay that I've found to be more effective is something that sounds like this. Hey, Daniel, or hey, Jim, this is Daniel with New American Funding. Hey, getting back to you, I looked at your file, I found something, I have an idea, and I want to run it by you first before I release it. I'll wait for your call. 949-267-2144. That's it. I don't even say the name of the company. Usually, I did say New American Funding, but usually it's just to that effect. Because what it sounds like is it's not an advertisement, but it also leaves them an easy alternative also to reply back to you, right? Like you could say, hey, I just left you an email, just reply back to the email if you can't make a phone call. Because in the height of things, when you're going through a lot of activity, we'll sometimes forget their time zone, and the fact that they're qualified for a reason is because they work. Weird, right? And so because they work, they're also just like us, and they have distractions throughout the day. Whereas sometimes we'll try and make them conform to our availability. For example, if you're setting up your pitch call, like saying, hey, I'll have some information in about 20 minutes, I'll give you a call back. That's probably the wrong way to set it up because you're not framing that second call to have all decision makers at the table. You're actually inviting yourself to leave messages that go unanswered. So I don't want to go too far ahead. We'll start again in baby steps. But how do you get them to call you back? And so that message is effective, even on outbound solicitations. Like some of us hunters right now are actually doing outbound calls and we're leaving voice messages for outbound people. But the problem sometimes lies in just us outbounding blindly, right? Where if we were to look at, let's say, our Ellie Mae or our Encompass, is it Encompass? Yeah. So, wow, so many different systems, right? So if we looked at our Encompass, we can actually change our view. Does that make sense? So we can actually pull FICO scores, the actual FICO in Encompass, and then also pull Fannie Mae or conventional loans. The reason why this is worthy is because Home Ready and Home Path enables us to do things that other lenders simply cannot do. And if you understand your products so that you can properly translate it to them, then you'll be a little bit more effective in gaining their attention. But see, the problem is, though, is that our voice message sounds something like this. Hey, this is Dan with New American Funding. Hey, I got an I-CAN loan. You can keep moving, right? Or I got that NAF 360, 245 months loan close. I just wanted to see if you're still interested. These are offers. And when you have a specific tone, and the reason why they put tone is because tonality is what triggers reactions from our consumers. So for example, when you're at a store and you hear a simple, how can I help you today? We are triggered, all of us are triggered this way, to say, no, I'm just looking, right? The same thing applies with when you see advertisements. So if you see like an email that says refinance in the subject line, it's a trigger. That's a business advertisement. Instead put RE : your scheduled check-in. Watch, they'll respond back. Why? Is because it stands out from all of the alerts. And so you're doing the same thing with your voice messages. Like if you're following on a past pitch who told you, hey, let me talk to my spouse, recognize that that's the problem, is you actually set up the appointment with the other spouse not there. You can't get mad at them if they now have to translate your message to the other party. You're setting yourself up for failure, so try to avoid that. But if you find yourself, because we can't always have the decision makers at the table, but if you find yourself following up on pitches that didn't gain commitment, the best way to do it is, hey Jim, this is Daniel getting back to you. Hey, I just went through your file with my manager. He caught something. I completely missed it. I apologize. I'll send it out to you as soon as possible, but I'll wait till I hear back from you. I just sent an email. Respond to either or. 949-267, right? So it builds up the curiosity, but it also makes it very easy for them to comply. That's what sales is. You make it easy for them to comply. When it becomes a challenge is you're offering so that they have to make a decision. Consumers hate making decisions. They just don't like it because they're afraid of the repercussion, right? But if you make it easier for them to comply, it's not necessarily a decision. It's, oh, okay, well, of course. Does that make sense? So the psychology of it all is rather effective, and I think why Ray brought in the retention strategy to today is because technically we're all in retention. We're trying to retain the attention from the consumers who are being distracted by the many alerts that are on this computer that sits in their pocket and has most of their attention, right? So if you get a missed call, the likelihood of it going to a voice message is just like how we react. Same thing goes with text messages as well as emails. So I know a lot of this information makes sense, but at the end of the day, only a few of us will apply it. It's a funny thing. And if we take a step back and realize, well, why do they even put this information together? Why do they put these trainings together? Why do they say leave an effective voice message? It's because it is our actions every day that ultimately result with the sale. That's the whole point of us saying, hey, this is a better way of doing a voice message, is because we know what your goal is to get a sale. So if you reverse engineer a sale, it all really begins with attention. Whether you get it from a text, a voicemail, a CSR, it's their attention. So how do you continue selling their attention is that you don't advertise, right? Marketing, selling, and closing are three different things. So when you're trying to connect with them, the marketing's already done because you're connected with them. Does that make sense? Now the selling is to continue gathering the information, but in order to do so, you have to listen to what they need. So in the first call, if you gathered that the wife lost her income, or if you gathered that their 4-year-old is now going to daycare because the wife is going back to work, these are clues that you can leave on your voice message that'll make you stand out far more effectively than your competitor, right? Like, hey, Jim, this is Daniel. Hey, I think I got a resolution for your deficit of $300 per month. Give me a call back. That's very attractive. There's a statement that says people don't know what they like what they know. And if you tend to tailor your verbiage to things that they know, they'll like you. Make sense? Rather than a vague statement of, hey, I think I could save you a couple bucks or a couple hundred. That's just an advertisement. There's no need to call you back. And so if you take some of these qualities and these techniques and sprinkle it into your efforts, you'll find that there's less resistance in getting the compliance that we're all fighting for every day. All you got to do is stand out and be a little bit different, but to be different, you have to be coherent to what you're even doing. And a lot of times we're just doing it because it's the process. Here's my callback block. Hey, this is Daniel with New American Funding. Just want to check to see if you're still interested in that refinance. I talked to you about 3 months ago. This is my 17th message. I'll call you back. Right? This is the reason why we laugh and why some of us feel like, oh, that's not funny, is because we are all experienced. I'm going through it too. You know, I'm no different than any of you guys. Don't take my advice just because I'm a manager. You can call me whatever you want. We're all hustling to make sure that we feed ourselves and we feed our family. And so if I could share with you a few techniques that help you feed your family, then take it, right? You have nothing to lose, but just be mindful of how you're doing your job today. Cool? Any questions?
Awesome.
Yes, sir. Okay, cool. Yeah, good question, because that does fall into, all right, well, when you get their attention, does that ever happen to you? Like you're in the middle of 3 different things, and then you get a call back and like, hey, just returning your call. You're,
Who's this?
Yeah. So there are what I refer to as what's called white noise statements, right? These are white noise statements is basically like, oh yeah, hey, you know what? I was just in the middle of a file. I'm closing it up right now. Let me go and pull up your loan file. Thanks for calling me back. So something that's automated, but it creates noise so while you do what you do. Does that make sense? It's kind of like our inbound script where it's automated to where you're talking, but you're situating everything, the property profile, the BV file, right? You're situating everything. And so the white noise statement is something that you come up with, but that's been effective for me. Like, hey, thanks for calling me back. Let me go and close up this loan file. I appreciate you calling me back. The information is rather time sensitive. And then I'll find out that through the BV lead that I found, this is why leaving notes is important and effective. But you say, hey, you know what? I found something. I had an idea and I want to run it by you. I know that we talked the other night about the numbers and you had to talk about your spouse. Well, I have a meeting with my manager this evening before I leave the office. We're doing a large amount of volume in your county. And I want to make sure that your file is previewed as well. So there were a few questions that probably came up since you talked, and it probably had to do with maybe rate, fees, terms. And so I want to discuss this with my manager to see if we can provide a solution for you, right? So essentially what you do is you figure out what their qualm was. And the reason why they're more inviting to tell you is because they believe you're taking it to the manager. And so when you go to like a place of business, the reason why you ask for the manager is to get special treatment. And so they conceive and they're triggered by the word manager. Does that make sense? They're triggered by the word, hey, we're doing a large volume in your community. They believe their community is doing it already. Does that make sense? This promotes and influences them to do what they believe their entire community is doing, but also they're interested to what your manager will have to say. And so what they'll do is they'll say, yeah, we just didn't really like the fee. Got it. But now we know how to sell them. Does that make sense? Oh, yeah, you know what? I didn't like the interest rate. Sometimes they just don't understand the rate, which is important to understand because if we just ask what their payment is and we forget to ask whether or not they pay mortgage insurance, we're not looking at the real rate. They may believe they're at 3.75, but they also have a 0.8% mortgage insurance. Make sense? But sometimes when we're in the heat of things, we're just quickly doing the trash worthy. We're quickly siphoning through the information, much like what we do with alerts. And so if we slow down and just figure it out and say, hey, because it's never really about rate. What they're trying to do is the reason why they even bring up rate is because they need the savings for something. Does that answer your question? Yeah. I don't want to go too deep into sales or whatnot. But you can tell I'm pretty passionate about the topic. And I like it because it's a game. If you change your perception of it and make it into a game and the ultimate win or your points is money, it's fun that way. It's not a grind. Does that make sense?